The top stories tonight in Y News. The new Philippine National Police Chief has ordered a massive reshuffle of over 80 senior officers, including those in the police organization's top positions. A bill filed in the House of Representatives seeks to distribute a one-time 2,000 cash assistance to all Filipinos as relief amid the COVID-19 pandemic and rising costs of goods. The Land Transportation Office called on local government units to suspend their no-contact apprehension policies and consider reviewing the traffic policy. And former President Fidel V. Ramos was laid to rest at the libingan ng mga bayani with full military honors. Good evening, Philippines and the world. Today is Tuesday, the 9th of August, 2022. I am William Theo. Join us in the next hour as we deliver today's top stories around the Philippines and in other parts of the world. We are also seen in 1,935 satellite monitoring centers nationwide and via live streaming worldwide through the UNTV News and Rescue social media accounts. First in the news, in the second quarter of 2022, the Philippine economy grew by 7.4%. It registered growth in gross domestic product for 5 consecutive quarters since the economy contracted in 2020 at the height of the pandemic. Nel Maribuhok will tell us why.
As rising commodity prices restrain household consumption, the Philippine economy expanded at a slower rate of 7.4% annually in the second quarter. According to the Philippines Statistics Authority, the services and industry sectors are the main contributors to the second quarter 2022 growth rate.
Ang services ay nagtala ng pinakamataas na kontribusyon na 5.5 percentage points. Ito ay sinundan ng industry na nagtala ng contribution na 1.9 percentage points, habang ang agriculture, forestry, and fishing ay nakapag-ambag ng 0.02 percentage points sa kabuuang pagtaas ng gross domestic product.
This placed the Philippines as the second fastest growing economy in Southeast Asia after Vietnam, according to Economic Planning Secretary Arsenio Balisacan. The NEDA chief said that to maintain high growth for the rest of the year, the country should continue to apply risk protocols. However, according to Balisacan, inflation is still a concern for the nation's economic recovery.
But inflation remains a concern. As you see, it's not just in the Philippines. No, inflation is everywhere, especially as you can see, almost highest inflation in recent decades in UK, in Europe, so it's everywhere, and it's primarily driven by this global supply disruptions, particularly fuel.
Despite this, Secretary Balisacan acknowledged that the resumption of in-person classes may stimulate the economy. Nel Maribuhok, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Meanwhile, a suggested retail price for sugar will be implied by the Department of Agriculture soon. Meanwhile, sugar producers support the agency's action, including the importation of the good. Ray Pelayo explains why.
The Department of Agriculture seeks to set a 90 pesos per kilogram suggested retail price or SRP for white sugar by next week. Agriculture Undersecretary Christine Evangelista stated that stakeholders groups are only finalizing the aforementioned amount. White or refined sugar price in the market reaches as much as 120 pesos per kilogram based on price monitoring of DA. But it should only be 90 pesos based on the cost structure done by the agency. An SRP should be set according to the United Sugar Producers Federation of the Philippines. Manuel Lamata, its president, claimed that additional factors contributed to the rise in sugar prices.
With all these circumstances ngayon, hindi naman natin gusto na mangyari to. Worldwide phenomenon naman. Sobrang taas naman yung fuel, sobrang taas yung fertilizer, yung sahod natin. parang pantay-pantay na yun, yung 90.
Additionally, Lamata anticipated that the proposed importation of 300,000 metric tons of sugar would result in a decrease in the market price of sugar. The official added, Negros sugarcane plantation is currently harvesting and is supposed to reach Metro Manila market in 2 weeks. Ray Pelayo, UNTV News and Rescue, we serve the people, we give glory to God.
A bill to provide one-time cash aid for all Filipinos was filed in the House of Representatives. Eileen Cerudo will tell us why.
In order to cope with the high commodity prices due to inflation and the effects of COVID-19 pandemic, House Bill number 2022 was filed in the lower chamber of Congress. The bill seeks to distribute 2,000 peso cash aid for all Filipinos. It will also accomplish the objectives of the Bayanihan 3, whose budget is estimated to be over 401 billion. The Bayanihan 3 bill, which also seeks to distribute 2,000 pesos in aid to each Filipino, was not passed by the Senate. According to Kalinga Party List Representative Irene Saulog, author of the said bill, no Filipino should be left behind. She further said that the proposed bill will help Filipinos who were overlooked by earlier government initiatives. A 218 billion budget is being sought by the lawmaker in order to implement the one-time cash assistance if it becomes law. If approved, the cash assistance that Filipinos would get will be used to buy food, oil, and other necessities in the midst of the ongoing pandemic. Eileen Cerudo, UNTV News and Rescue, we serve the people, we give glory to God.
The Department of Health, or DOH, reported an increase in COVID-19 infection rates across the nation while maintaining a low-risk categorization. JP Nunez reports why.
The weekly positivity rate in the country jumps to about 2% higher than last week. The Department of Health reported that as of this week, COVID-19 infection rate in the country is at 18.6%.
Sa ganitong lagay, tumataas po ang national weekly positivity rate tungo 18.6% mula just 16.7% last week. Nakakakita po tayo ng patuloy na pagtaas sa bilang ng ICU admissions sa ating severe and critical COVID-19 admissions at the national level simula early July.
Despite being over 4 times higher than the WHO's 5% threshold, the country is still classified as low risk, with an average daily attack rate of 3.42 cases per 100,000 people. Meanwhile, the DOH makes it clear that the next face-to-face classes won't be postponed due to the rising infection rate.
Please know that the positivity rate is not the only indicator that we should use to determine yung ating sitwasyon sa isang lugar. Pag tinignan natin, oo, tumataas sa mga kaso. Oo, nakikita natin, positivity rate is increasing. Ibig sabihin, tumataas yung mga nagpa-positive na individuals. But most of these are mild and asymptomatic. Nakikita natin, hindi na overwhelm pa yung ating sistema. Nakikita rin natin na hindi naman masyadong tumataas ang severe at critical. So sa tingin ko, hindi ito dapat maging bagay na makapagpa-delay, no, sa pagbukas ng eskwela o di kaya ay pagbukas ng ibang sektor.
Vergere assured that hospitals nationwide are prepared and the current situation is still manageable. JP Nunez, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The Food and Drug Administration, or FDA, is currently reviewing Janssen's application for a certificate of product registration for its COVID-19 vaccine. According to the Department of Health Officer in Charge, Yusek Maria Rosario Vergere. According to Yusek Vergere, Janssen is at this time the only COVID-19 vaccine manufacturer to have applied for a CPR. Janssen's single-dose vaccine received FDA approval for emergency use in April 2021. A CPR will let manufacturers to market and sell their goods to the general public.
According to the Food and Drug Administration, as of August 9, isa pa lang po na manufacturer ang nakapag-apply ng CPR sa kanila, and this would be Janssen, no, from J&J.
Russia and Ukraine are accusing each other of shelling Europe's largest nuclear power plant. Marvi Delfin will give us the details live. Marvi?
Kath, nuclear experts have raised concerns over the attacks on Ukraine's Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant, which was captured by Russia early in the war, warning of a disaster that could be bigger than the Chernobyl nuclear accident. Russia claims that shelling by the Ukrainians has caused a power surge and fire, while Ukraine blamed Russian troops for storing weapons in the plant. UN's nuclear watchdog, the International Atomic Energy Agency, or IAEA, stated last week that the situation is completely out of control, urging Russia and Ukraine to grant them access to the plant in order to stabilize the situation. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres supported this idea, stating that any attack to a nuclear plant is a suicidal thing. Ukraine's military intelligence spokesman Andrei Yusov called on Russia to make a goodwill gesture and hand over control of the nuclear plant to the IAEA or the Ukrainian military. Kath?
Thank you, Marvi Delfin, for that live report. The capital area of South Korea was inundated by some of the worst rain in decades. At least 8 individuals died, some of them drowned in their homes, while another 7 were reported missing. According to the Ministry of the Interior and Safety, at least 790 individuals had to leave their houses, while about 800 structures in Seoul and adjacent towns sustained damage. The Seoul metropolitan area and surrounding areas were still under a heavy rain advisory from the nation's meteorological service. Up to 14 inches additional rain were predicted for the capital region through Thursday.
Police General Rodolfo Azurin Jr., the newly appointed Philippine National Police Chief, implements a major revamp in the roster of the senior officials of the PNP. Command group members are among those affected by the reshuffle. Leia Ilagan reports why.
5 days after officially taking office, the new Philippine National Police Chief implements a significant revamp of the police force. Members of the command group are included in the reshuffle. Police Lieutenant General Rodel Sermonia, PNP Deputy Chief per Administration, has been appointed as Commander of Area Police Command Visayas. Lieutenant General Vicente Danao Jr., Deputy Chief per Operations, was also transferred to Area Police Command Western Mindanao. Police Lieutenant General Chiquito Malayo, on the other hand, has been promoted to number 2 man or Deputy Chief per Administration, replacing Sermonia. Police Major General Benjamin Santos was appointed as Deputy Chief per Operations, replacing Lieutenant General Danao. Police Major General Arthur Bisnar was appointed as the PNP's number 4 man or Chief Directorial Staff. Police Brigadier General Ronald Lee was installed as the Director of the Criminal Investigation and Detection Group, while Police Brigadier General Jonel Estomo has been appointed as the Director of the National Capital Region Police Office. Police Brigadier General Edgar Alan Ukubo from Pro 11 was appointed as the Director of the Special Action Force. Police Major General Felipe Natividad, a former NCRPO Director, was appointed as the Commanding Officer of the Area Police Command in Northern Luzon. Apart from the revamping of the unit heads, some regional directors and other district directors of the NCRPO were also replaced. Malayo added, if needed, a next revamp is possible.
For now, wala pang binabanggit ang ating Chief PNP, pero definitely magkakaroon kung kinakailangan pa.
PNP Public Information Office Chief Police Brigadier General Roderick Augustus Alba stated that the recent reorganization is a part of the officers' career advancement and would support their efforts in the fight against crime, the enforcement of the law, and the maintenance of peace and order. Leia Ilagan, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people. we give glory to God.
The Land Transportation Office exhorts local government entities to suspend their no-contact apprehension policy. The LTO claims that they must review the aforementioned traffic policy. Asher Kadapan Jr. tells us why.
The guidelines being implemented under the No Contact Apprehension Policy or NCAP needs to be ironed out. This includes complaints of operators of public utility vehicles who are forced to pay the fines for traffic violations committed by their drivers. The Land Transportation Office explains this as it appeals to local government units to suspend the implementation of the said policy. In an official statement, LTO Chief Assistant Secretary Teofilo Guadis III says they need to review NCAP to hold accountable the actual driver who commits the violation instead of the vehicle owner. He also encourages the LGUs to sit down with the LTO to rectify the issues. Guadis also emphasizes that the LTO is only helping the LGUs and the Metropolitan Manila Development Authority in the implementation by sending alarm about the vehicle in violation, while the LGUs are the ones who actually draft the guidelines of NCAP. Another issue that Guadis wants to study is when the vehicle is already sold to another individual and the transfer of ownership is not yet registered with the LTO, but a violation of traffic rules was committed. A group advocating motorcycle rights agrees that the LGUs are not yet ready for NCAP's implementation.
For example, the rightmost lane is your turning lane, and then the second, third, and onwards, you can use that lane to move forward, but some of the LGUs have changed the markings and turned 2 lanes into a right turn lane only. So these changes confuse the people. And when people are confused, they are bound to make mistakes and errors.
Guadis believes that the objective of NCAP is noble, but it should first be fine-tuned for a stronger and more effective implementation in order to contribute to a smoother flow of traffic in Metro Manila. Asher Kadapan Jr., UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Vice President Sara Duterte meanwhile refuted allegations that she is responsible for filing cyber libel raps against former vice presidential candidate Walden Bello. Janice Inhente will tell us why.
Walden Bello, a former vice presidential candidate and human rights advocate, was freed from detention after posting bail in connection with his cyber libel cases. Bello, 76, was detained on Monday in pursuant to a warrant for his arrest for 2 charges of violating Republic Act 10175 or the Cybercrime Prevention Act of 2012. Earlier, Bello blames Vice President Sara Duterte's camp as behind in his cyber libel case. VP Inday Sara, however, refuted the allegations. She reminded the former lawmaker and longtime activist not to drag her into his legal woes. Bello's camp was able to post bail for the cases amounting 96,000 pesos at the QCRTC. His cases stem from the complaints filed by former Davao City Information Officer Jeffrey Tupas, saying that the human rights activist accused him of being involved in illegal drugs. Janice Inhente, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
After 3 weeks, forest fires in central Newfoundland, Canada continue to burn out of control, and residents have been asked to prepare for an evacuation. Miguel Moldez will tell us why.
A state of emergency was declared on Saturday night in central Newfoundland in Canada. 2 massive forest fires continue to burn out of control Monday in Baie d'Espoir Highway and Paradise Lake, leading to the closure of the highway which connects Newfoundland's south coast to the rest of the island.
As a result, I asked Minister Hogan today to declare a state of emergency for Grand Falls, Windsor and the surrounding area, Bishop Falls and the surrounding area, and the Caniagua Peninsula. I've also asked the Central Health to begin to triage an evacuation plan for their hospitals, long-term care facilities, and personal care homes.
As per remote sensing technology, the Paradise Lake fire is estimated to be 6,614 hectares, while the Baie d'Espoir fire is around 5,273 hectares. Newfoundland's Premier Andre Fury has asked residents to prepare for a possible evacuation.
We are strongly recommending that all citizens in the areas mentioned to be on high alert for future possible evacuations. This is a dynamic situation and we don't want to create panic. That's why we're acting now in a controlled, responsible fashion.
Meanwhile, Forest Fire Duty Officer Jeff Motti said they are doing their best to try and get the highway open again. This is despite the fact that the fire is on both sides of the road and the size of the fire is increasing due to the wind. Miguel Maldez, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Due to labor shortages, Qantas, an Australian airline, asked at least 100 volunteers, including its senior executives, to work as baggage handlers for the next 3 months at Sydney and Melbourne airports. Their duties would include loading and unloading of bags, which weighs as much as 32 kilograms each, and driving vehicles to move luggage around airports. As borders around the world reopen, Qantas is now facing challenges with staffing due to the winter flu, COVID-19 cases spike, and the tight labor market. The airlines had to lay off thousands of staff during the pandemic to limit its financial losses. Aside from Australia, UK airlines and airports are also experiencing staff shortages, which led to delays and cancellations during the holiday periods. Several nonprofit organizations are planning to launch a $100 million project in support of local health workers. Ia De Vera will tell us why live. Yes, Ia?
Kath, $100 million will be invested into a philanthropic project to support frontline health workers directly involved in fighting against COVID-19, HIV, and Ebola within the community. The Skull Foundation, along with Johnson & Johnson, will donate $25 million into the project. Financing organization The Global Fund to Fight AIDS, TB, and Malaria is further donating $50 million.
I'm honored to say that the Johnson & Johnson Foundation and our Janssen EMEA Donor Advice Fund is committing $15 million over 3 years to the Africa Frontline First Catalytic Fund. The case is simple and proven. If we solve the challenges facing health workers, we improve healthcare for everyone.
Peter Sands, executive director of the Global Fund, adds that the workers, many of whom are women and unpaid, are the best beneficiary of the project, on top of maximizing health impacts in Africa. The project will deploy funds to encourage program designs that will help strengthen community health programs, such as the Last Mile Health, as part of the Africa Frontline First initiative since 2016. Eventually, governments will have to sustain the funds themselves in countries like Zimbabwe and Liberia, where community health workers can greatly impact the health system. Kath?
Thank you, Ia De Vera, for that live report. And those are the reasons behind the news in other parts of the globe. I'm Kat Dumaraos, live from Bangkok, Thailand. Good evening.
In order to assist individuals and families in difficult situations, the Department of Budget and Management released a 2 billion peso budget to the Department of Social Welfare and Development. The DBM said that it had already approved the 2 billion peso special allotment release order for the DSWD's assistance to individuals in crisis situation, or AICS. AICS provides services which include financial assistance for transportation, medical, burial, food, and other support services to individuals and families in crisis. As of June 30, 2022, 1.5 million beneficiaries received aid under the DSWD's assistance to individuals in crisis situation, exceeding the annual target of 1.4 million. Former President Fidel V. Ramos was laid to rest at the Libingan ng mga Bayani with full military honors. Personally attending the state funeral was President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. Dante Amento has the story.
A 21-gun salute, former President Fidel Ramos received this highest honor during his state funeral at the Libingan ng mga Bayani today. AFP Chief of Staff Lieutenant General Bartolome Bacaro and the three major service commanders of the Philippine Air Force, Navy and Army hosted the full military honors. A 105mm howitzer or cannon was fired along with the flower drop from Air Force choppers. The casket containing the urn was immediately transported through a funeral procession to the presidential grave site. A 21-gun salute, a volley of fire, and a flower drop were also performed at the gravesite as part of the full military honors. President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. attended Ramos's funeral. The Philippine flag used at the burial was presented to the President by newly appointed Armed Forces of the Philippines Chief Lieutenant General Bartolome Vicente Bacaro, who then gave it to the former First Lady. After Ramos's funeral, the former First Lady sent a statement in which she thanked everyone and recalled the changes their family had to undertake as a result of the late President's interesting military career.
Maraming salamat sa inyo lahat sa tulong nyo. Alam nyo, mahirap ang buhay sa military. Pero kinaya namin. Tumulong si President Ramos, kayang-kaya niya, at he was able to raise 5 daughters, 8 grandsons, and 5 granddaughters.
Ramos was a military officer who served as Vice Chief of Staff of the AFP and then as Chief of the Philippine Constabulary. He then served as the late President Corazon Aquino's military Chief of Staff before being named Defense Chief. In 1992, he won the presidential election and succeeded Aquino. Dante Amento, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
Our Kasangbahay, as the world faces these trying times amid the pandemic caused by coronavirus, we are inviting everyone to join the global prayer for humanity from Monday to Friday, 9:30 p.m. Philippine time through the social media accounts of Members Church of God International. And before we close, we will leave you with a word giving glory to God from the book of 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 3. It says, "And though I bestow all my goods to feed the poor, and though I give my body to be burned and have not charity, it profiteth me nothing." And those are the reasons behind the news, August 9, 2022. Reasons we deliver to you as they unfold. I am William Theo, and because we need to know, we will always ask why. We serve the people. We give glory to God.